Welcome back to Flick Connection. In this episode, we're going to talk about some movies that are absolutely free to watch on YouTube right now. If you don't know, they have a rotating roster they change out every month or so, and there's a bunch of great movies on there right now. But in this video, I'm going to spend about a minute per movie recommending some killer flicks that most people have missed and would likely pass up otherwise. Thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. But we're going to get started with an incredible drama about martial law starring Denzel Washington, Bruce Willis, and Annette Bening in The Siege. Now, I will say it's pretty important to note that this movie came out 3 years before the events of 9/11. The reason I say that is because this movie involves terror attacks, pretty severe terror attacks on American soil. Not as big as 9/11, yet the reaction to them in The Siege is much larger than they were after 9/11. As I said, martial law is instituted in New York City, but do not expect an action movie with The Siege. No, this is just high drama stuff that revolves around martial law. I would say this has a lot more in common with shows like Homeland than it has with films like Red Dawn, so expect some high drama stuff, but also the cost of liberty and freedom is really explored in this movie in ways that are not typically explored in movies. There's not a lot that depict martial law, at least not on this scale. And at the very least, it's an interesting thought experiment as to, what could happen in a scenario like this. But next up, I've got another flick from the late 90s that explores ideas that have just completely exploded in today's culture with conspiracy theory. Now, obviously, conspiracy theories have been around for quite a while, but over the past decade or so with social media and YouTube, conspiracy theories have gotten into the zeitgeist in ways I don't think they've ever been before. Now, in this movie, Mel Gibson plays kind of a rabid conspiracy theorist, but what's so interesting about this movie is a lot of the stuff he's theorizing ends up becoming true. Yet this movie somehow feels really grounded. It does go a bit over the top at times, yet it feels pretty real. There's also a major role from Julia Roberts, and Patrick Stewart plays a great bad guy in this. Conspiracy theory is loaded with really intense scenes, one after the other at times, and it holds up really well in 2025, but it's not the only Mel Gibson flick on this list. My next selection is a Western he did that is loads of fun, but has been largely forgotten with time, Maverick.
Hey! Oh, sorry. Give me that.
Now this one's rated PG, it's family friendly, it's fairly long, and a lot of fun. Now, it does feel a bit dated today, it doesn't hold up as well as the other two I just mentioned, but it feels dated and old-fashioned in a charming way. While it's not really a kid's movie, I would say if you're a fan of Westerns and you want to kind of get your family into them, Maverick is a great way to go. It's fun, it's lively, it keeps moving, it's got a lot of gambling elements to it that are a lot of fun, and doesn't feel nearly as slow or dry as real good classic Westerns can. Just, again, a great way to introduce younger audiences into that genre. Now, I did not plan for my last two picks to both be Mel Gibson flicks. I also didn't plan for my next two to be Shia LaBeouf flicks. But a little over 15 years ago, he did a great PG-13 action-adventure movie co-starring Michelle Monaghan titled Eagle Eye.
Hello?
The FBI will arrive at your apartment in 30 seconds. You must flee the premises.
Who is this? No, none of this is mine!
This one revolves around government surveillance, but it's over the top. It is a wild story. It is not accurately depicting what government surveillance looks like. As a result, Eagle Eye ends up being kind of a wild, fast-paced action-adventure movie. Feels almost like a Michael Bay movie, just not quite as crazy. It's a bit more grounded than most Michael Bay movies tend to be. You also get a great little early role from Anthony Mackie in this. And an interesting take on AI, nothing too groundbreaking or revolutionary, but it's in there. This was also produced by Steven Spielberg, and has kind of a Spielberg action-adventure vibe, and the movie's just loaded with twists and turns. In fact, I'll say Eagle Eye and Conspiracy Theory would make an amazing double feature. Now next up, I've got a much more heartfelt Shia LaBeouf hidden gem, but while we're on the topic of surveillance, it's a good time to mention today's sponsor, Delete Me, and how they can help you protect your data. Unfortunately, almost everyone's personal data, including your name and home address, is being sold by data brokers online, and what's worse, almost anyone can purchase this data. I mean, having your personal details out on an open marketplace like that can open you up to identity theft, harassment, stalking. It also makes you a prime target for phishing scams. But you do have the right to protect yourself and keep your information private. To do so, you would have to contact all of those data brokers repeatedly until they removed your data. That's what Delete Me does for you. Then they send you a quarterly report that actually shows how much time they saved you, while also showing you all the sites you've been completely removed from, as well as the ones they're actively working on. And the best part is, it was super simple to set up. It took less than 5 minutes. Now I just get that quarterly report, I get less junk in my email, and my phone doesn't ring constantly from spammers. For a limited time, my viewers can save 20% when they purchase a consumer plan by going to joindeleteme.com/flick and use my code FLICK at checkout. Delete Me can even help protect your entire family's information with a family plan. Again, to get 20% off, follow my link or just go to joindeleteme.com/flick. Use my code FLICK at checkout. It's a great deal on a product I highly recommend, but speaking of things I highly recommend, let's get back to the movies.
Little man on a lamb. Met your girlfriend back there, Eleanor. 2 bandits on the run. Oh, yeah!
In The Peanut Butter Falcon, Shia LaBeouf plays kind of a rough character that's living on the fringe of society. He's living like an outlaw, and he ends up befriending a man with Down syndrome who is also kind of an outlaw in his own way. He escaped from the nursing home where he lived. He lives in a small town. There's really nowhere else for him to go. But he literally greases himself up one night and slips through the prison bars. At the advice of Bruce Dern, I might add. He's got a small role in this movie, but it's kind of interesting that he's in it. Yet the relationship between Shia LaBeouf's character and this actor who really has Down syndrome is fantastic. Not only are they really kind of funny and charming together, but the movie's just got a lot of heart. I mean, I can't speak from experience, but I would imagine anyone who has a close family member with Down syndrome would find a lot to love with this movie. But even if you don't, like I said, I found it not only entertaining, but just a ton of heart to this one. Now, my next one has a lot of heart to it as well, and believe it or not, it actually stars Glenn Powell as a fighter pilot, and it was released less than a year after Top Gun Maverick, yet Devotion was quickly forgotten, probably because Jonathan Majors got in so much legal trouble right on the heels of this movie releasing. They may have even shuttered some of the marketing for this film. Yet it's about a pair of fighter pilots during the Korean War. On that note, there's not a lot of movies that depict the Korean War. Obviously, you've got one white, one black, so there's a lot of racial stuff in this movie, but I actually appreciated the way it was handled. It's not too heavy-handed, and it's also not repeating a lot of things I've seen in similar movies, which I think helped this movie feel grounded. It doesn't wallow in it too much, largely because I think the main character, played by Jonathan Majors, doesn't really wallow in it either. But the movie features some fantastic aerial battle sequences with some pretty old planes. You know, there's some other movies that do it. Honestly, Devotion did a killer job with the battle sequences, and this movie, I honestly think, would have done a lot better commercially, if not for, Jonathan Majors' issues. That said, if you missed it, it's a real gem that is just free to watch on YouTube, I think because of how overlooked it was. Next, we've got one from 1981 that I think is still the best movie about dragons ever made. If you can think of a better one, feel free to let me know in the comments, but Reign of Fire, as much as I like that movie, I don't even think it comes close to Dragonslayer. Game of Thrones fans, I think you're going to find a lot to love with this one as well. Not only is it set in medieval times where you've got dragons, but there's wizards and all sorts of stuff. Now, the look of the movie does feel pretty dated, yet the special effects do not. I mean, there are a couple of shots where the dragon looks like stop-motion animation, but for the most part, this movie does an amazing job of incorporating the dragon, very similar to Jaws. You don't get a good look at the dragon for most of the movie, and the crux of this story is fantastic. Peter MacNicol plays a wizard's apprentice who is essentially the only person willing to go after this dragon. Now, while I enjoy the entirety of this movie, it is fairly slow-paced, does feel pretty dated, but by the time you get to the final sequence, which is quite long, it's incredible. I mean, when he goes into the cave after this dragon, the movie really does take off and does not stop until the end. If you've got any sort of affinity for dragons, wizards, or any of that stuff, Dragonslayer is a total banger. Now, next up, we're going to talk about one of my favorite and one of the most underrated John Carpenter movies ever made. If you've been paying attention to the shirt, you've probably guessed it. And yes, the shirt is still available at DarrenVanDam.com. It's a great way of supporting the show while also showing off your taste in movies. But before talking about They Live, Father Goose is included with YouTube right now. Now, I did not include this on the list, even though I love this movie, but it's been decades since I've seen it, and I don't think I've ever seen it available on a streaming service. But I recall this being just a fun watch for the whole family. I cannot wait to watch this with my kids. If you've never seen it, it's set in World War II. Cary Grant is the sole inhabitant of this Pacific island. He's essentially out there with a radio, spotting enemy aircraft, when a bunch of girls and a teacher from a French boarding school shipwreck near him. He suddenly has all these girls and a woman he's got to take care of on this island, and it is hilarious. Like, this is just a charming, fun movie I highly recommend. But you know, my family-friendly stuff gets skipped over so often, I didn't want to make it an official selection on this list. Again, though, I cannot wait to watch this with my kids, especially my daughter. I think she's going to love it. But the John Carpenter cult classic, They Live, is also free to watch on YouTube. I love everything about this movie. I love that it stars Roddy Piper. I love that it's got one of the longest fight sequences in cinematic history between Roddy Piper and Keith David. But the concept of this movie is the thing I love the most. It just has so much to say about consumerism and propaganda. Roddy Piper plays a drifter who discovers these special sunglasses. You can see them right here on the shirt. When he puts them on, he can see through this facade and see the world for what it really is. Suddenly, all the marketing around him has very direct messages. Not only that, he can see the alien overlords that are hiding amongst us. Just looking at this movie, it looks kind of like a shoot-'em-up type movie, and it is at times. You would not expect it to be nearly as thought-provoking as it is, but my goodness, is this thing a killer flick, which is why this is one of my favorite shirts out of my collection. I wear it all the time. It's one of the top sellers, too. It's one of my favorite movies of its kind. And then my number one pick is a just amazing mystery movie with an incredible cast. And I have not talked about it here on the channel in probably well over a year. But Sam Raimi, the director of The Evil Dead and A Simple Plan, did this crazy little supernatural thriller that stars Cate Blanchett, Katie Holmes, Keanu Reeves, Greg Kinnear, Hilary Swank, Giovanni Ribisi, J.K. Simmons, and was written by Billy Bob Thornton on the heels of Sling Blade. Here, I'm talking about The Gift. Cate Blanchett plays a psychic in Louisiana. You know, she does tarot card readings and things like that. Yet she's actually suffering from some debilitating visions in this movie. In fact, this movie came out only a year after The Sixth Sense, and I think it has a lot in common with it, even though you're not exactly seeing ghosts in this movie. Even though it's 25 years old, it still features a lot of twists and turns you are not gonna see coming. It's got a southern gothic vibe, which I always love. Stunning visuals, supernatural elements, the twists and turns, like, what else could you ask for? That's why it's my number one pick. Here's a quick recap of the list along with where else you could currently stream these if you don't want to watch commercials on YouTube. Don't forget to check out the Delete Me link down in the video description, but I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for watching this YouTube episode, and you will see me on the next one.